Jesse Ware, remember where you are. It's 29 past 6, ABC Central Coast, all of the local news. Making news with Emma Simpkin up next.
Conversations.
Spend an hour in the life of someone else.
It had to be a giant shark. My hand disappeared into its mouth. I thought, I'm gone.
Someone who has seen and done remarkable things.
And I knew straight away I had to gouge its eyes. And then I grabbed it in a bear hug. Then I realised I was 50 feet underwater holding my breath and I'm going to drown.
Hear the latest conversations, weekday mornings from 11 on ABC Radio.
Or anytime on the ABC Listen app.
Scott Levi.
On air, online and via the ABC Listen app.
On ABC Central Coast.
It's 6:30. Good morning, Emma Simpkin with ABC Local News. Federal public servants are set to get a boost to their pay packets. Lisa Glenday reports.
Despite budget pressures, the Labor government is following through with an election promise, offering an olive branch to public servants with a 3% pay rise over the next 12 months. The federal government says it's part of a new interim workplace relations policy, while it consults on a longer-term plan for pay and conditions across the public service. The minister responsible, Katie Gallagher, says it ensures workers aren't worse off while it works on a new public sector-wide wage deal.
The New South Wales opposition has labelled a government commitment to raise the Warragamba Dam wall short-sighted and risky. The Premier says increasing the dam wall by 14 metres will reduce the number of evacuations and homes inundated in the event of a serious flood. But the plan has divided the local community, with many concerned it could promote further development on the floodplain. Opposition leader Chris Minns says the government has done nothing for 12 years and now suddenly has decided it's an emergency.
Don't make a bad situation even worse. We won't do that, and it's been repeatedly insisted by the member for Penrith, Stuart Ayres. That is his ultimate agenda, to increase the population on the floodplain. I just think you're going to put more people in harm's way. It's a short-sighted and risky situation for them to be pursuing.
An engineer says Australia's water data collection system is letting down dam managers, especially in times of flood. University of New South Wales Professor Stuart Kahn says currently data is collected by local, state and federal government agencies, making it difficult to collate. He's backed a new report by the Australian Academy of Technological Science and Engineering, which calls for the development and implementation of technologies like satellites to improve monitoring. He says real-time data is critical, especially ahead of dam releases in times of heavy rain.
Sometimes when we make those decisions, we're making those decisions on imperfect data. We don't really know that the water that we're releasing is going to be fully replaced, and we don't really know that we're necessarily releasing enough of that water in order to properly mitigate that flood.
The man accused of murdering a young man and injuring two others during a shooting frenzy outside his Central Coast home told police he was trying to kill those in his street, giving him a problem. Mary Louise Vince has the details.
42-year-old Bradley Jason Mark White is on trial in a Newcastle Supreme Court, charged with 7 offences, including murder, after he fired more than 200 bullets at 5 homes and 8 cars in a Wyong street in March 2020. He's pleaded not guilty on the grounds of mental or cognitive impairment. Yesterday, the jury was shown a recording of the accused police interview where he said he'd ingested a gram of the drug ice hours before and during the shooting. He told officers he was trying to prove a point and described being anxious, angry, like an enraged bull, and high. The trial continues.
The peak body for the Jewish community says it understands authorities are making good progress in identifying more people involved in the fascist salute incident at the Australia Cup in Sydney on the weekend. With the details, Jean Kennedy.
Several fans of Sydney United 58 were filmed doing Nazi salutes and booing the welcome to country during the match against Macarthur FC, with footage posted on social media. Football Australia has issued a lifetime ban to one fan and is working with police to identify others. New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies CEO Darren Bark.
It's very clear, based on the images that we've seen, that there are many more fans taking part in these abhorrent acts.
He understands police are tracking cracking down the rest.
We look forward to swift and heavy penalties to be enforced.
He wants them all given lifetime bans.
Aaron Finch has guided the Australian men's cricket team to a narrow 3-wicket victory over the West Indies in the first T20 international at Carrara. ABC Sports' Quentin Hull with the details.
The Aussies World Cup warm-up had a promising start on the Gold Coast, chasing 146 for victory after the fast bowling mafia of Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins returned to its best. The hosts suddenly began to flounder in the run chase. After losing Warner and Mitch Marsh early, skipper Aaron Finch steadied the ship with 58 from 53 deliveries in a 69-run partnership with Matt Wade. Wade finishing unbeaten on 39 not out. Australia reaching 7 for 146 to win by 3 wickets with a ball to spare. The second game to be played at the Gabba on Friday. Quentin Hull, ABC Sport, Gold Coast.
Having a look at the weather on the Central Coast, there mightn't be much cricket for the country champs under-19s in action at Tuggerah today. Cloudy with a very high chance of rain, becoming less likely late this afternoon, a top of 18 around the coast. Tomorrow, partly cloudy with a high chance of showers and a top of 23. So not the best weather for cricket here on the Central Coast, Scott, but an absolute cracking 6 in that T20 by one of the West Indian players last night.
Yeah, the big fast bowler who can also bowl at close to 150 k's per hour, just knocked 114 metres into the stands. And there was another 6 where a fellow forced it off the back foot over the offside that Mark Waugh, a Central Coast local, said was the best shot he'd ever seen.
That one was described as outrageous.
It was, so hard to do, to generate power off the back foot like that. And, of course, it's not far off, is it?
Transferring that disease from their blood to another patient, they put a ban on any UK donors. But they've now kind of reviewed that and seen that the risk of that happening is so small that it's now, they deem it safe for people who lived in the UK during the 90s to be able to donate. And they've now got the tests that they need to do to be able to detect if that disease is in the blood. So, yeah, it's great. I heard a stat the other day that there's been already 22,000 UK expats sign up and donate since the ban's been lifted, which is amazing.
Great news, Justin. Thanks for sharing it with us. I really appreciate your time. Junior Medical Officer from Central Coast Local Health District, Justin Clark. Thanks for rolling up your sleeves.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Scott Levi on ABC Central Coast.
ABC Central Coast, and very exciting, the Weed Guy live in the studio on what we need to look out for, and particularly with all this rain coming down, it might move some of those water weeds as well. Paul Mary Nissen, Central Coast Council's Biosecurity Weeds Officer, he's in great demand. Simon Marnie loves him. Sydney people love him. And he's one of ours. He's one of our brilliant locals who is going to have a little look at some problems. He's even bringing some in. A bit of Sicilian sea lavender. First time ever on radio, coming up in the next half hour.
Good morning, Emma Simpkin with ABC Local News. The man behind a fatal shooting spree in a Wyong street 2 years ago told police he was anxious, angry and high when he fired more than 200 bullets at 5 homes and 8 cars in less than an hour. Mary Louise Vince reports.
42-year-old Bradley Jason Mark White is charged with 7 offences, including murder, after he used 2 rifles to fire the shots, killing a 20-year-old man and injuring 2 others in March 2020. He's pleaded not guilty on the grounds of mental or cognitive impairment. During his Supreme Court trial in Newcastle yesterday, the jury was shown a recording of his police interview where he said he always felt under attack from some people in his street and was trying to prove a point to them. The accused told officers he ingested a gram of ice hours before and during the shooting. The trial continues.
Meteorologists are predicting Sydney's annual rainfall tally to hit a record high by the end of this weekend. 3 rain bands have converged on New South Wales this week, bringing totals of 100 mils of rain to several towns. ABC meteorologist Tom Saunders says he expects a new record yearly total in the harbour city by Sunday. The largest fall on the Central Coast was 60 mils in the Wyong River catchment overnight. The New South Wales government's contentious commitment to raise the Warragamba dam wall has divided the local community, with strong views on both sides. More from Jean Kennedy.
The Premier argues increasing the dam wall by 14 metres will reduce the number of evacuations and homes inundated during a major flood. On the streets, views are well and truly mixed.
If they raise the dam wall here, it's going to flood Camden and places around there.
100% raise the Warragamba Dam. It leaves a lot of people not being able to get to work, not being able to get to hospitals.
It's going to save people losing their homes and people losing their lives. Of course it is.
Well, it's a silly idea because most of the flood that comes through the Gross Valley, which is after the dam.
The opposition is against it, saying after 12 years of government inaction, suddenly it's an emergency.
COVID has contributed to employment vacancies nearly doubling over the past year, according to the National Skills Commission. Gabriella Marchant reports.
There are more than 9,000 nursing jobs currently vacant in Australia, the highest number for any job in the country, according to the National Skills Commission. Construction managers, childcare workers and motor mechanics are also in hot demand, with job openings across the economy growing by 40%. The 2022 Skills Priority List suggests healthcare vacancies can be partly attributed to burnout among frontline workers due to the pandemic. The federal government says the report highlights the need for its planned Jobs and Skills Agency, which will assess and advise on national workforce demands into the future.
A Central Coast-based dog trainer says more positive solutions are needed as part of ongoing community discussion about where pet dogs are allowed off-leash. Central Coast Council has received more than 3,000 public submissions on its draft Dogs in Open Space action plan, which includes proposed off-leash bans at popular sites like Terrigal Haven and a dog ban on all sports fields. Louise Harding is a member of Council's Community Advisory Committee, initially involved with the issue, and says she's received abusive messages. She says people need to be more constructive.
Everybody's really angry about what happened in the draft review, but what we need are some positive suggestions and solutions to move forward with it. When you're on that committee, your name becomes public knowledge, and yeah, I've received a few not very nice texts.
Australia's men's cricket team has been aided by poor fielding from the West Indies to limp to a 3-wicket victory in a T20 match on the Gold Coast. Matthew Wade and Mitchell Starc were both dropped in the final over as the home side reached the target of 146 with 1 ball to spare. All-rounder Cameron Green says his team didn't field well and suggested the ground could have played a role.
Most people would say they'd be pretty disappointed in how they probably fielded out there. I think, we obviously pride ourselves in our fielding, but there are quite low lights here, so if there is one excuse, I'd probably put on that.
NRLW star Jesse Southwell has been named as Newcastle Knights Rookie of the Year at an awards ceremony last night. And in weather, what do you think? A cloudy day with a very high chance of rain becoming less likely late this afternoon, a top of 18 across the Central Coast.
Yeah, but it's coming down, but it's not that bad today. It looks like Saturday is the day.
I wasn't on board with all of that. The guy who commissions the review is appointed the CEO and then he's sacked 30 hours later. That's just in Barham's tenure in the space of 4 or 5 weeks. So it's not looking like a great timeline so far for David Barham, who was meant to be the guy to come in and set the ship back on the right path.
I think I've got the right attitude and I think I've got the right desire for what it's got to be. And this club needed a shake-up and a reset. So I still think we've secured a pretty good coach.
It's been a disastrous 4 or 5 weeks so far for him, and really they've got half a board at this stage. They've still got to try and appoint a number of new people into those positions that were obviously vacated when the chief executive and the former president and coach departed.
Corbin Middlemass, thanks for your time. For more on what on earth is happening at the Essendon Football Club, look for ABC Sport Daily in your podcast feed.
And that's ABC Sport Daily's Patrick Stack there. And yeah, you can jump on, you can find ABC Sport Daily on the ABC Listen app as well if you want to hear a bit more about that story or sort of the longer form of it.
The Country Hour.
I've grown up around it.
Connecting the country to the community. I think it's a great way to stay across agricultural issues around the state. The places.
Macquarie Island is a sentinel.
The people.
You know, at the moment doing around that 40 to 50,000 litres a year.
The stories.
It's really quite rare. Up until February this year, it would have been equalled the world record.
The Country Hour.
It's a great way of spreading the word.
Weekdays at noon on ABC Radio and the ABC Listen app.
And if you jump on today and have a listen to that, you'll hear a bit about our Mid-North Coast Avo season and how they're rolling out, trying to get ahead of the wet weather, and also a little bit about water monitoring in dams and how one professor thinks that there needs to be much more of it. My name's Luke Ryan, you're listening to ABC Coffs Coast. It's nearly 7:30 and time for the news. On the other side of the news, I'm going to be telling you about the ABC campaign, Your Move. It's a quiz. You can jump on abc.net.au and do this quiz, and it'll give you some insights into your health and well-being and your fitness. But as part of it, I'm going to suggest you go take a hike. Literally take a hike out in one of our beautiful walking tracks, and we're going to talk to a local expert in some of the hidden gems that you might not have found, and see if we can get one foot in front of the other, and so on and so forth.
ABC Radio, it's yours.
Yours for live grandstand sport.
Yours for the latest on your local team.
Yours, win, lose or draw.
ABC Radio.
Cloudy today with a high chance of showers. Good morning, Madeline Cross with ABC Mid-North, Coffs and North Coast News. An engineer says Australia's water data collection system is letting down dam managers, especially in times of flood. University of New South Wales Professor Stuart Kahn says currently data is collected by local, state and federal government agencies, making it difficult to collate. He's backed a new report by the Australian Academy of Technological Science and Engineering, which calls for the development and implementation of technologies like satellites to improve monitoring. He says real-time data is critical, especially ahead of dam releases in times of heavy rain.
Sometimes when we make those decisions, we're making those decisions on imperfect data. We don't really know that the water that we're releasing is going to be fully replaced, and we don't really know that we're necessarily releasing enough of that water in order to properly mitigate that flood.
Mid-North Coast residents are being told to prepare for more wet weather this weekend, with areas south of Taree expected to face the worst. The Bureau of Meteorology says light showers are expected today before a second system is expected to approach the region tomorrow. Widespread rainfall totals of up to 20 millimetres are forecast for Sunday, with the chance of a thunderstorm. The Bureau's Miriam Bradbury says the system should move away by next week.
Really, it's all about the next 3 to 4 days, particularly the weekend, that we need to be aware of. There is the possibility of severe weather across this time, so we really just do encourage everybody to keep an eye on the Bureau's website.
The recent weather is impacting avocado harvest across the Mid-North Coast as farmers race to pick their crop between rain events. Comboyne avocado farmer Penny Tiddeman says the rain stops production on her farm.
We don't pick when it's wet or when the fruit's wet because it bruises too easily, so we have to make every available sunny moment count. We actually went and bought another cherry picker so that we could harvest more during the dry periods.
A North Coast representative of the Rural Doctors Association has told a New South Wales parliamentary inquiry ambulance ramping affects patient outcomes in country hospitals. General Surgeon Susan Volovsky was giving evidence to the Upper House inquiry into the impact of ambulance ramping on the operation of hospital emergency departments. Dr. Volovsky says the impacts are different in country areas.
In the city, if there's no beds at a particular hospital, you can turn around and divert that ambulance to another hospital. But in Wagga, in Lismore, in Orange, you can't turn an ambulance around and go another 300 kilometres to the next available hospital. And that is the issue.
Lismore's Greyhound racing track has been permanently closed following extensive flood damage earlier this year. New South Wales Greyhound Breeders, Owners and Trainers Association Chairman Jeff Rose says it's not viable to rebuild the track, which would require meeting new industry standards. He says the new standards would mean widening the track, which isn't possible because of its proximity to the river.
We would love to be able to say it is more, but the standards are what they are. We agreed on those standards when the threat of closure of the industry to do, so we've got to abide by them. But that doesn't mean that we're not willing to work with other parties up there to establish safety in that area.
South Lismore business owners say small and medium-sized operations affected by the flood are still in desperate need of financial assistance. Steve Robinson from Southside Truck Centre says many businesses are questioning the gap between the support they're getting and what has been offered to big businesses like Norco. Mr Robinson says he is happy Norco will be rebuilding in South Lismore, but more help is needed.
Businesses like here at Southside Truck Centre, yes, we were able to get support from the government with the $200,000 grant, but that was it. Our losses here at Southside are in the multiples of millions of dollars.
Julie Matthews from Matthews Metal Fabrication says her South Lismore business is feeling forgotten.
I feel like, as a community member, what about us as small and medium businesses that also employ and carry and have to replace all these lost stock and equipment?
To the weather now, cloudy with a very high chance of showers, becoming less likely this afternoon. A top of 20 degrees in Taree, Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour, 21 degrees for Crafton, 19 in Lismore and 20 degrees in Byron. To hear today's local news, search online for ABC Local. ABC News. Breakfast with Luke Ryan on ABC Coffs Coast.
G'day, good morning. Yeah, Luke Ryan here, broadcasting across Kumbangia, Dungari and Yaegul country until 8 o'clock when it's news and AM, and then
Macquarie Cup. It's the social event of the Mid-North Coast, especially Port Macquarie, and it's on tomorrow. We'll find out more in a moment. But right now, let's go to the local newsroom to join Madeline Cross.
Cloudy today with a high chance of showers. Good morning, Madeline Cross with ABC Mid-North, Coffs and North Coast News. An engineer says Australia's water data collection system is letting down dam managers, especially in times of flood. University of New South Wales Professor Stuart Kahn says currently data is collected by local, state and federal government agencies, making it difficult to collate. He's backed a new report by the Australian Academy of Technological Science and Engineering, which calls for the development and implementation of technologies like satellites to improve monitoring. He says real-time data is critical, especially ahead of dam releases in times of heavy rain.
Sometimes when we make those decisions, we're making those decisions on imperfect data. We don't really know that the water that we're releasing is going to be fully replaced, and we don't really know that we're necessarily releasing enough of that water in order to properly mitigate that flood.
Mid-North Coast residents are being told to prepare for more wet weather this weekend, with areas south of Taree expected to face the worst. The Bureau of Meteorology says light showers are expected today before a second system is expected to approach the region tomorrow. Widespread rainfall totals of up to 20 millimetres are forecast for Sunday, with the chance of a thunderstorm. The Bureau's Miriam Bradbury says the system should move away by next week.
Really, it's all about the next 3 to 4 days, particularly the weekend, that we need to be aware of. There is the possibility of severe weather across this time, so we really just do encourage everybody to keep an eye on the Bureau's website.
The recent weather is impacting avocado harvest across the Mid-North Coast as farmers race to pick their crop between rain events. Comboyne avocado farmer Penny Titterman says the rain stops production on her farm.
We don't pick when it's wet or when the fruit's wet because it bruises to it easily, so we have to make every available sunny moment count. We actually went and bought another cherry picker so that we could harvest more during the dry period.
A North Coast representative of the Rural Doctors Association has told a New South Wales parliamentary inquiry ambulance ramping affects patient outcomes in country hospitals. General Surgeon Susan Volovsky was giving evidence to the Upper House inquiry into the impact of ambulance ramping on the operation of hospital emergency departments. Dr. Volovsky says the impacts are different in country areas.
In the city, if there's no beds at a particular hospital, you can turn around and divert that ambulance to another hospital. But in Wagga, in Lismore, in Orange, you can't turn an ambulance around and go another 300 kilometres to the next available hospital. And that is the issue.
Lismore's Greyhound racing track has been permanently closed following extensive flood damage earlier this year. New South Wales Greyhound Breeders, Owners and Trainers Association Chairman Jeff Rose says it's not viable to rebuild the track, which would require meeting new industry standards. He says the new standards would mean widening the track, which isn't possible because of its proximity to the river.
We would love to be able to say it is more, but the standards are what they are. We agreed on those standards when the threat of closure of the industry is, so we've got to abide by them. But that doesn't mean that we're not willing to work with other parties up there to establish safety in that area.
South Lismore business owners say small and medium-sized operations affected by the flood are still in desperate need of financial assistance. Steve Robinson from Southside Truck Centre says many businesses are questioning the gap between the support they're getting and what has been offered to big businesses like Norco. Mr Robinson says he is happy Norco will be rebuilding in South Lismore, but more help is needed.
Businesses like here at Southside Truck Centre, yes, we were able to get support from the government with the $200,000 grant, but that was it. Our losses here at Southside are in the multiples of millions of dollars.
Julie Matthews from Matthews Metal Fabrication says her South Lismore business is feeling forgotten.
I feel like as a community member, what about us as small and medium businesses that also employ and carry and have to replace all these lost stock and equipment?
To the weather now, cloudy with a very high chance of showers, becoming less likely this afternoon. A top of 20 degrees in Taree, Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour, 21 degrees for Crafton, 19 in Lismore and 20 degrees in Byron. To hear today's local news, search online for ABC Local. ABC News.
Kutigu baraba yukiri Amy Davies, Nata Kurikdaba, Nata Joyal Gafam, Bimba Ngaragi, ABC Radio. Hello, my name is Amy Davies. I'm from Port Macquarie, New South Wales, and I'm speaking their tongue, and you're listening to ABC Radio.
Conversations.
Spend an hour in the life of someone else.
It had to be a giant shark. My hand disappeared.
By flooding, knowing that by Sunday we could have some flooding along those waterways. So today, showery, cloudy, 19 degrees for Newcastle, Maitland heading for 20, Singleton and Scone expecting 19. Very similar picture tomorrow, except quite a deal warmer. I don't know why, but 6 degrees warmer tomorrow, up to 25 degrees tomorrow, and showery again. We might even see a thunderstorm into the mix tomorrow, just for a bit of fun. Strong wind warning for the coast, both today and tomorrow. By Saturday, the rain ramps up further, and we'll see higher rainfall totals on Saturday and Sunday. And we have the near 100% chance of rain on both Saturday and Sunday. That's as certain as they get at the Bureau of Meteorology. We have a thunderstorm possible on Saturday, and by Sunday there's a warning that we could see some heavy rainfall around the Upper Hunter.
Jules says Waratah got 20 millimetres. Thanks, Jules. Dean in Woodville, 25 millimetres in the last 24 hours. Paul's in Raymond Terrace, 30 mils there. Right, you're winning. And the moistometer, a 7. With the temperature at around 13. Moistometer is 7. Thank you. March is in Muswellbrook, 11 millimetres in the gauge for the last 24 hours. Captain Cow says 13 millimetres in Vasey. 13 degrees right now, 97% humidity. Very dark and fully overcast with light rain falling. Haymaking index, 0.
I love that we have a new index, by the way, in the mix, the Haymaking Index 0. Oh, Captain.
Birmingham Gardens Baz, 30 millimetres there, so you're on par with Raymond Terrace, thank you. Sir Doug's in Woodville, 14 degrees there, 95% humidity, 18 millimetres of rain to 5 a.m. with some cloud cover. Thanks, Sir Doug. And Mike's in Floraville. The last 24 hours, they got 23 millimetres in Floraville and just some light rain continuing as we speak. Postie stamp at the 3 dashes say 12 degrees in Aberdeen. Some cloud cover, 9 millimetres of rain overnight. Thank you.
Keep your rain gauge readings coming in. 1300 33 12 33. You can also call, let Nat know how it's looking at your place on 1300 33 12 33.
Traffic. It's moving well. I mean, if you're on the highway approaching Singleton and McDougall's Hill, it is busy, and it's right back to the turn-off there too. So that is pretty standard for this time of day. Whittingham, it gets busy. If you see something on the roads, 1300 33 12 33. It's wet, so that's when accidents are more likely to happen. So please be careful on the roads today, and do let us know if you see something. In terms of trains, we've got 3 days worth of shutdown, so we're in the middle of the Hunter line having some track work done, some pretty serious work actually by the ARTC. So buses are replacing some trains between Scone and Maitland today and all the way through until tomorrow night, 10 p.m. It should all finish up, but buses replacing trains between Scone, Dungog and Newcastle interchange. Check transportnsw.info before heading to the train station.
Mornings with Kaya Handley.
You know that someone mows the medium strip, your favourite oval for you to go for a run. These are the little jobs that if they're not done, you definitely notice, and they just seem to happen. And that's thanks in part to people like Matthew Lee, who is the Community Project Officer at Cooma Correctional Centre.
Some guys that you take out of their first time out in like 15 years, so sometimes there's even a tear that rolls down their side of their cheek, just overwhelmed in where they are, and you just tell them like that. You can't take it for granted.
Kaya Handley. Weekdays from 9 a.m.
on ABC Newcastle.
Breakfast Brainiacs.
It is a people-themed question for you this morning. Who am I, in fact? Who am I? I'm a fictional character struggling with the last year of high school in Sydney, dealing with racism, family conflict, social hierarchy. If you know the name of this person, call now.
Jen has already knocked out any characters in Heartbreak High. So, the fictional character struggling with the last year of high school in Sydney. We're dealing with racism, family conflict, social hierarchy. Paul is called from Tyers Hill. Hello, Paul.
Good morning, Dan.
What are you up to today?
Oh, I've got a refrigerated truck, remember?
Yes, that's right. And this, as we head into the warmer months, it must be a nice place to work.
Oh, it's good when you get in the back, for sure. Yeah.
Paul, do you know I drove past somebody in a refrigerated truck the other day, looked at the driver and went, oh, that could be Paul.
A white truck?
Yes. Well, it was only a small, wasn't it one of the big ones?
Yeah. It was good.
Could have been Paul.
There you go. Could have been you. You're like, where's Wally on our roads? So, Paul, a fictional character struggling with the last year of high school in Sydney. We're talking issues of racism, family conflict, social hierarchy. Who do you think it is?
I think it's Chris Lilly's character, Jamie King.
Jamie King. Oh. It's not, but that is a very good guess.
I'm thinking out there, okay. I'm trying.
Yeah, we love it. Thanks for calling, Paul. Yep. Might see you on the road again, or not. It could be somebody else.
And we love a good guess. That was a solid one. We can knock it out of the list of potential characters, fictional characters struggling with the last year of high school in Sydney, dealing with racism, family conflict and social hierarchy.
Jemay certainly had that social hierarchy thing going on, didn't she? Let's go to Curry. Morning, Chris.
Morning, Jenny. Oh, gosh, sorry. Morning, Dan.
Morning.
I'm 99.9% unsure of this one.
Oh.
I want to go to another bag, so...
Yes, we're happy to send you a bag if you can get it.
Why do you need another bag? Do you just need a collection of them?
No, one of mine split.
Oh, no!
Overused it.
I overused it hugely.
Because they are
soy milk and fruit and veggies, and I need to use it.
Yes, let's not cast aspersions on the quality of the reasonable.
No, I know that. It was what I did with it, Danny.
Now, my next question is, what do we do with a reusable shopping bag that's no longer reusable? Can it go in the red cycle at the shopping centre? Is it of the make and model that can now go into recycling it so that it becomes a park bench now that it can't be a shopping bag anymore?
Dan, too hard a question.
I know. Although it was rhetorical in the sense that now we need to figure out the answer of that, so yes.
We'll figure it out for you, Chris. In the meantime, let's see if we can get you in the plastic container of destiny. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Who is this fictional character?
Alibrandi. But I'm not...
Would you care to elaborate?
No, that's the problem. It's a play at the Belvoir at the moment, and I've always promised myself to read it.
Yeah.
And I haven't. Just think, Mark Hazy, there's something,
Look,
I can't think.
If anyone who calls Breakfast Brainiacs this time of day, if you're going to call and have a crack, we're going to be as kind as possible. So, Chris, I think we're going to give it to you.
Correct.
Well done.
You have the surname. The first name is Josephine Alibrandi. I studied this in high school. You say you need to read the book, but I have read the book, and I would love to see the play.
Yeah, I know. So would I. But I've got to get to Sydney.
Yes, so Josephine Alibrandi, she's the high school character created by Melina Marchetta for the book, but then...
That's what I was trying to think.
Yes, I could tell it was on the tip of your tongue. But, then it became the very successful movie and now the play. But well done, Chris, and you should read it. It's a great book.
Thank you. I shall.
We'll put you in the plastic container destiny. Bye-bye, Chris there from Curry, who... we're giving it to her.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it's early.
And I'll be honest with you, when I saw the question, I thought of the surname. I couldn't think of the first name either. Alibrandi, it's in the title, obviously, but Josie Alibrandi.
We've had someone breaking the rules of text engagement, and they've texted in the correct answer. Josie, yes, thank you. But incorrect answers only to the text line, but thank you for getting involved. It's 12 to 6 on ABC Newcastle Breakfast. We're going to take you into the Upper Hunter very soon. Catch up with Amelia Bernasconi, taking a look at some crops in the Upper Hunter and how things are looking for the season ahead. In the meantime, though, you're a big fan of Ben Harper.
I am. I've loved him since my uni days. This is a song called Where Did We Go Wrong? A new one from him. New album called Bloodline Maintenance. It is 12 to 6. Dan and Jenny with you. ABC Newcastle Breakfast.
Ben Harper, where did we go wrong? It's 9 to 6 on ABC Newcastle Breakfast. Dan and Jenny with you on a day where we'll see more showers moving through ahead of rainfall totals increasing over the next couple of days. I wonder what that means for farmers and the spring and summer crops.
Amelia Bernasconi is your ABC Upper Hunter breakfast host, and her day can look very different to mine. Where were you yesterday, Amelia?
Well, I jetted out straight after the show, Dan, to get out into the wide open spaces. It was a little soggy, though, out at Merriwall, or nearly at Castless, really, looking at this. It's a cropping trial field day that I was at, and it's run in partnership with DPI, Local Land Services, and the Grains Research Development Corporation. And it's not unique. There's nearly 30 of these trials across the state, but it runs through different varieties of, say, wheat, and they grow them in these controlled or semi-controlled sort of a trial space, and it just gives growers an insight into what's working well. I guess like one thing this year that people have been really watching closely is a disease called stripe rust. Loves the wet weather. It lives in the soil, and we've seen that this year. So, for example, there might be one variety that's more susceptible or more resistant. So, just all of those things that farmers have to think about. It's not just, we're planting wheat, so a wheat seed. It's, there's all these varieties within that as well.
So you got to take a look around, as well as those who might potentially grow these crops. How are people feeling about the season ahead?
Well, I didn't actually get down to the trial. It started raining on the way over, so I was just there for a little bit and spent some time. Thankfully, the local RFS lent the shed out, so we could all sit in there and hear some presentations from people like Peter Matthews, who we'll hear more from on the Rural Report today. He's basically one of the heads of the grain, the cereal guides that are published through the Department of Primary Industries. Very important documents, I can guarantee you. Probably not to us, but to others. So he puts things like that together. So there was a great opportunity to hear from some wonderful industry heads there yesterday. So that's the bit I caught up with a few people. But around the district, what is it now, early October, we were over there a couple of weeks ago for the Mary War show, and all the canola was flowering, and it's just a beautiful drive through. I think some of it's been windrowed now, back to the green, and from all accounts, I spoke to one of the local agronomists yesterday as well, and he just said that the quality this year is so wonderful. Canola is up a bit. There's a lot at play there in oilseeds demand for them, so there's about 20 to 30% more canola in the ground this year. But hopefully, this rain is probably not coming at the worst time for our district. Hopefully all the quality will hold up through this wet weather event.
Amelia, thank you, and stay dry today and into the rest of this week.
See ya.
Amelia Bernasconi there, your ABC Up Hunter breakfast host. She has your rural and resources report after the news and early AM in the Upper Hunter. But in the Lower Hunter from 6:15, you'll hear about a fishy tale, about a fishing competition in the US.
This has rocked the world of competitive fishing, which I didn't know an awful lot about until recently, but I've become quite interested in what's happening there. More on that to come from 6:15 if you're listening in the Lower Hunter. The Knights have had a big celebration overnight for the women premiers, as well as the Jersey Flag team, which made it to the grand final, and has handed out some awards to its players. Shanice Parker and Jessie Southwell were joint winners of the Peak Honour, their NRLW Player of the Year award.
Meanwhile, Jessie Southwell also named Rookie of the Year, adding to her Dally M Rookie of the Year award that she claimed during grand final week. So I hope she has a big enough mantelpiece. Karen Murphy, the Karen Murphy medalist, Tamika Upton, and Yasmin Clydesdale received the ultimate accolade from their teammates. That's the Players Player Award, of course. And Olivia Higgins was recognised for her contribution. She took out the Head Coach Award, Ronald Griffith's Coaches Award.
Caitlin Johnson got Player of the Year and Players Player, as well as the NRLW Thrive Award for her commitment and her contribution to the club's player development program. She also won the Once a Night Old Boys Gladiator of the Year. That sounds...
It's handed over by an old boy too.
Fantastic.
I think it was Steve Simpson that came back to handle that.
Good. And co-captain Millie Boyle won the Community Player of the Year award. You might be aware that she's been involved in the Game Changer program. This is for people living with a disability. She's been a part of that and was recognised for that. So wonderful to hear those awards going to our NRLW players. With the Jersey Flag, though, there were also some awards handed out.
Brock Greason and James Johnson won Players Player. They share that award, and grand final standout Thomas Cant was recognised for his extraordinary season. He took out the Jersey Flag Player of the Year, so well done to all our local players. Some space news, by the way. SpaceX has just launched the next long-duration crew of the International Space Station. So this is owned by billionaire Elon Musk and his rocket company. 2 Americans are on board, a Japanese astronaut as well, and a Russian cosmonaut are on this International Space Station. It's a long work trip, by the way. The crew is not expected back until March next year. Imagine if the boss sent you off on a work trip till March next year.
Hope they packed some Christmas presents, because they'll be gone for Christmas, clearly. Wow, what a trip. I hope all goes well. The Prime Minister is holding some important meetings in Canberra today. The Solomon Islands Prime Minister, Manasseh Sogavare, is there. You might be hearing about that in the news. The relationship is a bit delicate at the moment. It's not the most, friendly relationship just right now, but those conversations are happening in Canberra today. More coming up in the news. And while we're wrapping up the football season, of course, cricket is just kicking off.
And Australia's just scraped home in the first T20 international cricket match against the West Indies on the Gold Coast. That's the men's side. set 146 to win. The Australians reached the target with 1 ball to spare, 3 wickets in hand. Do love a close game.
Speaking of cricket, if you love your cricket and your T20, there's a special T20 World Cup regional roadshow coming to Warners Bay today. We'll let you know more about it later on today, but sounds like a good school holiday thing. Starts at 1 o'clock this afternoon. You get to meet players. There's multicultural activities and performances, all kinds of stuff happening. So that's at John Street Field from 1 o'clock this afternoon. More details a bit later.
But let's get the details of the conditions right now. It's raining. It's not worth a surf, is it, Dave Anderson?
Yes, we've got these fresh northeasterly winds up here and a bit of rain this morning. I've had to find people up early, walking past, braving the rain, but looking at the radar, it might clear up a little bit later on today. So the storm's picked up again. It's gone around to the east. It's around about 3 to 4 foot up here this morning. The tide's going high soon, so it's quite choppy up here. We've got the streets in the southern corners. They're not the best of swimming conditions either. We may see a couple of beaches closed today, but the wind down the northeast, blowing around about 10 to 15 knots again. I can see the ships out there, so not really heavy rain up here, but just that constant rain like we had yesterday afternoon. So looks like we've got these conditions again for the next couple of days, so we'll just have to put up with it. Okay. We'll go to the cricket up at St John Oval.
Yes. John Street Oval, Warners Bay, which is a bit out of your local neighbourhood, as your usual local neighbourhood. But Dave, thank you very much. Dave Anderson's back with you in an hour. So that's 1 o'clock this afternoon, 3 till 5. John Street Field, Warners Bay. There are kids' activities, a virtual reality T20 experience. You can send an interactive support message to your favourite T20 team, African drumming. There's heaps going on there. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Rugby league's not over, by the way. There are nearly 1,500 young people from the state representing their Aboriginal nation in the Nations of Origin tournament. It's taking place, started yesterday, goes through to the weekend. It's happening in Raymond Terrace. Gosh, I hope the weather plays along. 4 days of rugby league and netball.
Fantastic. So all these athletes coming in from across the state into Raymond Terrace, they're using a whole bunch of local sporting fields. Port Stephens Council is throwing its support in there. It's organised through PCYC, I believe. But well done to all those players getting out there, meeting new people, improving their sports skills. What a great thing to do. It's nearly time for the 6 o'clock news here on ABC Newcastle Breakfast. Your Rural and Resources Report is coming up in the Upper Hunter. We'll be back with you in the Lower Hunter.
Going somewhere?
Don't let signal strength stop you from enjoying your daily dose of drive with Paul Turton.
Get your local show wherever you go.
With the ABC Listen app.
Paul Turton, streaming live online with ABC Newcastle.
Morning, Bridget Murphy with ABC News. COVID has contributed to employment vacancies nearly doubling over the past year, according to the National Skills Commission. Gabriella Marchant reports.
There are more than 9,000 nursing jobs currently vacant in Australia, the highest number for any job in the country, according to the National Skills Commission. Construction managers, childcare workers and motor mechanics are also in hot demand, with job openings across the economy growing by 40%. The 2022 Skills Priority List suggests healthcare vacancies can be partly attributed to burnout among frontline workers due to the pandemic. The federal government says the report highlights the need for its planned Jobs and Skills Agency, which will assess and advise on national workforce demands into the future.
The former head of the Australian Consumer and Competition Commission says taxes must be increased to pay for the services the public demand. Rod Sims is warning the federal government cannot deliver the improvements to childcare, aged care and healthcare that Australians expect unless revenue is increased. Mr Sims is urging the government to reconsider its opposition to a mining and carbon tax and to increase taxes on oil and gas companies.
If they make returns way more than they ever expected to justify their investment, then I think it's only fair that the community gets a better return. That's a well-accepted proposition all around the world. Indeed, the main gain Australia gets from its oil and gas and minerals is tax revenue or royalties.
A Newcastle man has appeared in court charged over the murder of a man in Stockton last year. The body of 54-year-old Graham Cameron was found in his unit, which had been destroyed by fire in July 2021. A 22-year-old man was charged yesterday and refused bail. The magistrate requested a mental health assessment be undertaken. The matter will return to court in November. Representatives from the Jewish community say they hope action will be taken against more people filmed during a fascist salute at the Australia Cup in Sydney on Saturday night. Several fans of Sydney United 58 were accused of performing Nazi salutes and booing the welcome to country during the match against Macarthur FC. Football Australia has issued a one-lifetime ban and says it will continue to liaise with police to identify other individuals who may have been involved. New South Wales Jewish Board of Deputies CEO Darren Bark says the wider community has condemned such action and he hopes others involved are identified quickly.
Images on social media clearly show many more fans taking part in these abhorrent acts, including the booing of the welcome to country. So we look forward to further swift and heavy penalties to be enforced by Football Australia as these fans are identified.
The new British Prime Minister has defended her time in office despite market chaos and widespread criticism in recent weeks. Isabella Higgins reports from London.
Liz Truss has delivered her first speech as Prime Minister to the Conservative Party conference. She walked on stage to the 90s hit Moving On Up and then defended the decision she's made in the top job. Her government's mini-budget, handed down less than 2 weeks ago, included billions of dollars of unfunded tax cuts, which sparked chaos on financial markets. Despite backing down on one of the most controversial policies, the Prime Minister says she is staying the course, but did admit her new policies would cause disruption. Activists waving a Greenpeace banner interrupted her speech before being kicked out of the room.
Aaron Finch has guided the Australian men's cricket team to a narrow 3-wicket victory over the West Indies in the first T20 international at Carrara. ABC Sports' Quinton Hull reports.
The Aussies World Cup warm-up had a promising start on the Gold Coast, chasing 146 for victory after the fast-bowling mafia of Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins returned to its best. The hosts suddenly began to flounder in the run chase. After losing Warner and Mitch Marsh early, skipper Aaron Finch steadied the ship with 58 from 53 deliveries in a 69-run partnership with Matt Wade. Wade finishing unbeaten on 39 not out. Australia reaching 7 for 146 to win by 3 wickets with a ball to spare. The second game to be played at the Gabba on Friday. Quinton Hull, ABC Sport, Gold Coast.
Briefly, in local sport, Newcastle Knights women's players Shanice Parker and Jessie Southwell have been named as joint winners of the club's NRLW Player of the Year awards. Checking the Hunters' weather, a very high chance of showers today, daytime maximum temperatures between 16 and 20 degrees. ABC News. Queen with David Bowie. Under pressure.
Thank God they ran into each other in Switzerland. That's where that jam session led to that song. Pretty impressive. Nancy Madawi sending through some emojis, frogs and umbrellas. Wow, she says 37 millimetres of rain there. That is extraordinary. Thank you.
ABC Radio, it's yours.
Yours for sharing your news.
Yours for airing your local perspective.
Yours in good times and bad.
ABC Radio.
Bridget Murphy with ABC News. Federal public servants are set to get a boost to their pay packets. Lisa Glenday has the details.
Despite budget pressures, the Labor government is following through with an election promise, offering an olive branch to public servants with a 3% pay rise over the next 12 months. The federal government says it's part of a new interim workplace relations policy, while it consults on a longer-term plan for pay and conditions across the public service. The minister responsible, Katie Gallagher, says it ensures workers aren't worse off while it works on a new public sector-wide wage deal.
A Newcastle man has been refused bail after being charged with murder. Cecilia Connell reports.
The body of 54-year-old Graham Cameron was found in his Stockton unit in July last year. The home had been destroyed by fire, which investigators later determined was deliberately lit. 22-year-old Dalton Trent Oliver was arrested and charged with murder yesterday. He appeared before Raymond Terrace Local Court, where bail was not applied for. A mental health assessment was requested. The matter will return to court next month. An engineer says Australia's water data collection system is letting down dam managers, especially in times of flood. University of New South Wales Professor Stuart Kahn says currently data is collected by local, state and federal government agencies, making it difficult to collate. He's backed a new report by the Australian Academy of Technological Science and Engineering, which calls for the development and implementation of technologies like satellites to improve monitoring. Professor Kahn says real-time data is critical, especially ahead of dam releases in times of heavy rain.
Sometimes when we make those decisions, we're making those decisions on imperfect data. We don't really know that the water that we're releasing is going to be fully replaced, and we don't really know that we're necessarily releasing enough of that water in order to properly mitigate that flood.
The man accused of murdering a young man and injuring 2 others during a shooting frenzy outside his Central Coast home told police he was trying to kill those in his street, giving him a problem. Mary Louise Vince has the details. 42-year-old Bradley Jason Mark White is on trial in a Newcastle Supreme Court, charged with 7 offences, including murder, after he fired more than 200 bullets at 5 homes and 8 cars in Wyong Street in March 2020. He's pleaded not guilty on the grounds of mental or cognitive impairment. Yesterday, the jury was shown a recording of the accused police interview where he said he'd ingested a gram of the drug ice hours before and during the shooting. He told officers he was trying to prove a point and described being anxious, angry, like an enraged bull, and high. The trial continues. A Merriwa agronomist says forecast rain this week will do little to reduce the high quality of crops in the district. Growers have battled increased diseases this year due to the wet weather, but are expecting average to above average yields. Agronomist Tim Sawley says he's hopeful a possible high yield will mean high profits for growers.
The potential yield is much higher than in the dry years, of course. We're probably talking 3 times the potential yield this year over the crops in the dry years. But yeah, the challenges will be whether we'll see that return into good money, really.
Newcastle Lord Mayor Nuatali Nelms is hoping the state and federal governments will help fund Stage 2 of the No. 1 sports ground upgrade so the city can host elite-level sport. $8 million has been spent at No. 1 on lighting, side screens and making the ground bigger. But some top-level sports, including AFL and cricket, want improvements to dressing rooms and other amenities. Councillor Nelms says council has a long-term plan for the sports ground, but it needs more funding.
The council is investing into these grounds themselves because we're not getting the grant funding, and I hope that will eventually change over time. We have been really proactive in investing in our grounds.
Newcastle Knights women's players Shanice Parker and Jessie Southwell have been announced as joint winners of the club's NRLW Player of the Year award. The Knights held its premiership awards for the women's team and the Jersey Flegg team last night. Thomas Cant was named the Jersey Flegg Player of the Year. Caitlin Johnston picked up the most awards at the ceremony with 3 honours. Taking a look at the Hunter's weather, a cloudy day today with a very high chance of showers. Daytime maximum temperatures between 16 and 20 degrees. Newcastle, Singleton and Scone looking at a top of 19. Dungog 20 degrees. ABC News.
Breakfast with Dan and Jenny on ABC Newcastle.
ABC Newcastle.
How much rain is on the way? What does it mean for our river systems? You'll hear from the Bureau of Meteorology in a couple of minutes from now.
Well, and we know we've had a lot of rain over the last few months and several of our local communities have...
Dan Cox and Jenny Marchant.
On air, online and via the ABC Listen app.
On ABC Newcastle.
They finished last in their debut season, but on Sunday afternoon, the Knights beat the Eels in a convincing win to become the NRLW champions. And I don't know about you, but I was on the edge of my seat. But then There was a few tries at the end there that I was like, they cannot lose.
They really sealed the deal in the last 10 minutes or so. Yasmin Clydesdale was among all the try scorers, of course, and she's here now. Yasmin, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
Your voice is a bit croaky.
Yeah, it's been a long couple of days.
You're a school teacher. Thank goodness you're not in front of a classroom today.
I know. I don't know how I would have gone if I was still at work, but yeah, no, lucky for school holidays.
Talk us through it, Yasmin. The team was strong for, really all of the game, but there must have been a point where you felt, we've got this.
Yeah, I don't know. The Eels really came out firing. They got first points, which again, in a grand final, it's kind of nice to get the first try, so we were chasing points quite early. But yeah, no, they stuck to their guns. I think, yeah, I don't think they felt like we were going to win definitely till like maybe the last 5 minutes, which is pretty crazy.
Well, and then you go and score at the end too, just to make sure that no one was going to beat you.
Yeah, I think we ended up scoring nearly 3 tries in the last 10 minutes. Yeah. It was, pretty insane. And again, that's a credit to Ron and what he's instilled in us, and it's like never give in and never take your foot off the throat kind of thing when you've got a bit of a roll on.
Yeah, Yasmin, it was about 8 minutes, I think, to go. You were 10 points up, and the commentator on whatever channel we were listening to made some kind of suggestion that the Eels could still take this, at which point I said, it's not going to happen.
No way.
And then 2 more tries, and I said, thank you very much. So, I mean, my goodness, what was it like returning to Newcastle on Sunday night?
Oh, it was really special. I've never sort of seen anything like this in the women's sporting sort of section. Like, I've played rugby and I've played for Australia, and I've never ever received anything like this. So the love for the game in the Upper Hunter in Newcastle is pretty insane. And we've got very passionate fans here, so it was something really special.
So, as I mentioned, as well as playing professional football, you're a PE teacher. On Friday, ahead of the game, we caught up with one of your students from Scone Grammar, Lockie Hales. Here's the advice he had.
Oh, well, I am a bit of a harsh critic, so... But, yeah, I think she just needs to embrace the nerves, play hard, do what she's done all year, because it's got her to the final, so it'll be good enough to get her the win, I think.
Yeah,
so
good point.
Do your job. Go Miss and go the night.
Go Miss, go the Knights, do your job. What's the support been like from your students?
Oh, it's amazing. They are, they're all my biggest supporters and my biggest critics. Lockie is definitely one of my harshest ones, but I take it as he cares. Yeah. So, and I love it, and I think that just like even comments with kids that have like probably never ever watched rugby league before, but they'll sit there and watch my game because I'm on the TV. So it's something really special, and it's like it really connects me to my students.
There are also now a generation of young girls who may not have been interested in football, but are watching people like you play and going, oh, okay, I'll give that a go. Are you aware that you are inspiring the next generation?
A little bit. It's a bit overwhelming sometimes, but I think as a PE teacher, I get to see it firsthand, and like even the girls that go to gala days for our school that normally wouldn't probably play tackle football, but because I'm going, they're like, oh, I'll come too. So it's pretty exciting for the future of rugby league here in the Upper Hunter.
Yasmin, we're not just congratulating you this morning on the grand final win. You've been named among a whole crew of your Knights teammates in the Dillaroo squad for the World Cup. How does that feel?
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. That was when I first came to rugby league, I said to my husband, I said, I'm going to make the Australian team for rugby league, and he kind of was like, God, you've got high goals, and I said, yeah, well, I do. I want to achieve it, and being named there was pretty overwhelming yesterday, being told in the morning. But no, I'm super excited, and I'm stoked to be on the campaign at the World Cup.
Yeah, massive congratulations to you. The support of your husband, the support of your school, as your day job, has all been really important, right?
Oh, massive. Like, if I didn't have that, I think it would have been really hard for me to keep playing rugby league, and I probably wouldn't have kept playing if I didn't have the support of Scone Grammar and Adam. But yeah, no, they love that I play, which is really exciting, and without that support, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today.
Will you be at City Hall tonight, Yasmin?
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I'm so excited just to be with the girls again. Even though I've kind of just left them, but no, it's going to be exciting to see everyone again and see the see Newcastle really come out and celebrate us.
Yeah, we can't wait to see you there. Congratulations again, Yasmin, and thanks for talking to us.
Right, thank you so much for having me.
Yasmin Clydesdale, part of that premiership winning team, and now on the World Cup national team as well for the first time. This is an ABC podcast. September 28, 1997. An historic day for most Novocastrians.
21 out from the goal line. Andrew Dawes down the shorter side. Oh, dummies. He gives it away to Albert. Albert in. Albert in. The Knights have won.
In front of 42,482 people, the Newcastle Knights came from behind to win their first rugby league grand final. And nearly 25 years later, on October 2nd, 2022.
Paris line. Jessie Southwell can go herself to score. She struck one tackle, then the next, and she slams it down to put the exclamation point on this NRLW grand final.
In front of 42,921 people, the Newcastle Knights women's team marked their own place in history. Today on the Newcastle Hunter Catch-Up, we're celebrating our hometown heroes and their historic win, charting their journey to League's summit and what it means for footy around the region. We've kept our eyes on how the Knights have done throughout the year. Let's flash back to an earlier episode as the season kicked off in August. So you might remember last year that the NRL women's season was postponed due to lockdown. We saw some great signs from the Knights before the abrupt finish, and the Knights' newest recruit is Millie Boyle.
All of us are here, and we're not here for something that we haven't shown that we can do already. So if everyone's putting in their best performances, training well on and off the field, playing good footy and being a good person.
Now, if you don't know Millie Boyle, you definitely should. She's a two-time champion already from when she was with the Broncos, and in 2021 she won the Dally M for Player of the Year. Millie came over from Brisbane along with Tamika Upton. With Millie at prop, Tamika at fullback, there was that feeling around the Knights like, this could be something. And after years of watching the men's side battle it out for the wooden spoon, hope around Newcastle footy feels a bit forbidden. But the women's game is new. It's fresh. And this was year 2 for a hungry Newie side with big plans. Sure, we won the wooden spoon in 2021, but things look different. And then
Fans have hung around as well. It's great to see. And Hannah Southwell slips over, and she might have hurt herself. It almost looked like she did a splits as she slipped over, and she's clutching that right knee.
Co-captain Hannah Southwell went down with an ACL injury in round 1. But Newey held on for the win against the Broncos.
Opposition, but what we're building here at Newcastle is honestly amazing. And before we ran out, we all looked each other in the eyes, and we really wanted to come out here and get the win. And I'm really glad we got that. Honestly, the town gets around us so much, as you can see from the crowd that we got here tonight. And we wanted to do it for ourselves, but we also wanted to do it for Newcastle. First win for the Newcastle Knights women's team, and we're fortunate enough to do it at home.
And the community rallied behind them.
Because above all else, that's all we've spoken about from day one, is making sure that we leave a performance out there that our community and club can be proud of, nothing else.
That's Ron Griffiths, the Newcastle coach, and it was his vision that appealed to the talented free agents, and sure enough, bit by bit, Newcastle beat down the Titans, then eked out a win against the Eels at home on an Olivia Higgins try. The surging Roosters did get the better of them in round 4, despite a couple of quick Newcastle tries after the half. We dismantled the Dragons, and that really punched our card to the finals. A team that holding the wooden spoon last year had never won a game before 2022, and we were now reborn on the edge of finals footy. Things were looking interesting, because we'd have to get through the undefeated Roosters, the team of the year, with player of the year, captain of the year, coach of the year. But the thing about being undefeated in the regular season is that, well, finals footy is a different game. And that's what the Roosters found out when they were shockingly upset by the gritty Parramatta Eels. For Newcastle, our semis were against St George, and the Knights knew just how to play them. And then it was the final. It all came down to the game on Sunday. The Knights were in the driver's seat, but it didn't mean that they weren't going to keep a cool head.
My preparation's pretty standard for each sort of game. I don't really think about footy until we're on the bus on the way to the game, to be honest. Think about anything but, go for a walk, have a coffee in the morning. But I don't really get too nervous. I think, especially big matches like this, just come down to effort areas. So I just think if you go in with that mindset, getting the little things done, especially with effort areas, you can get the job done.
This turnaround was historic.
Southwell off to a catch, easy as you like from Tinsel. She slides in the score next to the post. The Newcastle Knights have scored 3 unanswered tries, John Gibbs.
It was a very curious game to watch, but at the end of the day, we hung in there the true Newcastle way and got the victory.
Oh, it was really special. I've never sort of seen anything like this in the women's sporting sort of section. Like, I've played rugby and I've played for Australia, and I've never ever received anything like this. So the love for the game in the upper Hunter in Newcastle is pretty insane, and we've got very passionate fans here, so it was something really special.
That's Yasmin Clydesdale, a second rower for the Knights. The bus back to Newcastle after the win in Sydney. Community out and proud to celebrate champions. In Year 5, NRLW is only growing and growing. With 4 new clubs set to enter the 2023 comp, these women are already treated like local legends. The Knights are flush with talent. Jessie Southwell is just 17 and coming up quick. Hannah should be back from her injury soon, and 2 players were named in the national team, the Gillaroos, including Yasmin Clydesdale.
When I first came to rugby league, I said to my husband, I said, I want to make this training into rugby league, and he kind of was like, you've got high goals, and I said, yeah, well, I do, I want to achieve it, and being named there was pretty overwhelming yesterday, being told in the morning. But no, I'm super excited, and I'm stoked to be on the campaign at the World Cup.
This success is meaningful, not only to the players, but to the region and all the little girls who grew up watching them tackle, pass, convert, just as good as any of the guys.
Women's rugby league, there'll be exponential growth over the next 5 years, and for us to have it in our area, particularly regional footprint, I just think we'll see it go through the roof. Anyone that comes in and plays NRLW now will be on the shoulders of the Giants in 2022.
The Newcastle Hunter Catch-Up is produced on Awabaka land. It's presented by me, Kaya Handley, and produced by Toby Hemmings. Supervising producer is Nick Lowther, and Bridget Murphy is our digital producer. Give us a review wherever you get your podcast, and tell your friends. We'll be back next week with more great stories from around Newcastle and the Hunter.
You've been listening to an ABC podcast. Discover more great ABC podcasts, live radio and exclusives on the ABC Listen app.
But at the end of the day, you desperately need, I believe, and people will tell you, and the evidence clearly points that you still need residential drug and alcohol rehabilitation services.
How quickly do you think we could see funding this $500 million dispersed? When will we start seeing some actual announcements around how this money is going to be spent?
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done on this before we can actually get some money particularly allocated to this project, but I've started that process already. I want to be out of the blocks early so that we are clearly showing our intent for what we want to do here in Tamworth. So what we've got to do is firstly build the new Banksia mental health facility in Tamworth, and once that's built, and hopefully construction will start early next year, then that will be probably a 18-month build. And then once the old Banksia mental health facility, which sits in Tamworth at the moment, is then vacated, that will then give us the opportunity to look at what we do need to repurpose. So it will be some time, but I want to clearly stamp our brand on this so we don't lose the opportunity.
Member for Tamworth, Kevin Anderson, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Christy.
Thank you. That is Member for Tamworth, Kevin Anderson there. You might have some thoughts on that too, trying to get some of that $500 million that's been pledged by the state government to address ice usage and, of course, the reuse of the Banksia unit for a centre
to help people with drug and alcohol addiction in our region. 0467922684. That is the number to text. I mean, Mr. Anderson's saying there that he feels confident that this is the type of project that could be funded as part of that $500 million that the state government has pledged. Very keen to hear your thoughts as well.
Stay connected with your ABC. Find news online at abc.net.au. Select your postcode to see local stories, news and weather.
Farmers brace for another round of rain and a call to axe the cap at the Port of Newcastle. With the latest news from ABC Western Plains, New England and Northwest, I'm Olivia Ralph. Farmers across inland New South Wales are bracing themselves for another soaking as rain continues to fall across already saturated catchments. Mixed farmer Richard Boodle has purpose-built levees around his property at Nyngan, but says it's a race against time to save his winter crop.
The barley will be ripe. It's just starting to turn now, so it will be ripe in 3 weeks, whether or not we're ready to harvest or whether or not we can get machines on there.
Water New South Wales says it will try and hold as much water in dams as it possibly can as multiple fronts pass across New South Wales. The Water Authority has been making releases from key storages across the state in preparation for current conditions. Water New South Wales spokesperson Tony Webber says downstream impacts will be carefully assessed before water is released.
It's really going to be a game of maximising storage capacity and then monitoring downstream impacts and holding that water back for as long as we can so that it doesn't add to that flooding.
A leading water engineer is calling for more investment in the technologies used to collect hydrological data across the country. University of New South Wales Professor Stuart Kahn says he backs a new report by the Australian Academy of Technological Science and Engineering, which focused on the country's variable climate and the need to have more accurate real-time data. Professor Kahn says current data collection methods are haphazard.
We need to invest a lot more. We need to be really making the most of current technology, looking at things like satellite monitoring to understand not just water quantity but water quality and how water quality is changing to a much greater degree than we're currently doing.
The Mayor of Gunnedah Shire says a move to axe the container cap at the Port of Newcastle could save farmers thousands of dollars. Lake Macquarie MP Greg Piper introduced a bill to State Parliament seeking to axe penalties the regional shipping hub pays if it moves more than a set number of containers. Councillor Jamie Chaffey says the export savings would create more opportunity for industry in the region.
For those in the Gunnedah Shire who are exporting, that saving could be somewhere around $560, $570, and that is significant per container of goods that leave the Shire.
A Sydney court has heard from a man who allegedly saw John Bowie bury women's undergarments the same year his wife disappeared. Lucy Thackeray has more.
A witness told the court he saw a man with red hair and a moustache digging in the gully of a Walgett golf course in northwest New South Wales, the year of Roxanne Bowie's disappearance. 40 years later, he recounted witnessing the man take something white out of his pocket, put it in a hole in the ground and bury it. The witness, who can't be identified as he was 12 years old at the time, said he later dug up the items and uncovered a woman's bra and pantyhose, which he then reburied. He identified the man he saw burying the garments as John Bowie. During cross-examination, the defence accused the witness of being a liar and being motivated by the $1 million reward police announced in 2018 for information about Roxanne Bowie's disappearance. Her husband, John Bowie, is currently standing trial accused of her murder.
A regional paramedic has told a state parliamentary inquiry that ambulances are waiting at hospitals for longer than he's seen in 20 years on the job. An upper house committee is examining ambulance ramping and access to hospital emergency departments across the state. Gilgandra-based officer and vice president of the Australian Paramedics Association, Scott Beaton, appeared via video link at the hearing in Sydney. He says COVID has exacerbated wait times, but a broader problem exists at EDs everywhere.
It's probably at its worst at the moment, yes, although it was bad in the early 2000s. It seemed to have been relaxed somewhat, but now it's certainly back with a vengeance, but across the whole of New South Wales, whereas previously it seemed to be metropolitan-based mainly.
And a group of Coolar residents are coordinating opposition to 2 proposed wind farm projects. The Valley of the Winds project would see 148 turbines built 250 metres high, while the Liverpool Range wind farm seeks to increase the height of more than 200 turbines to 250 metres as well. Farmer and Secretary of the Uabaru-Tongi Lane Alliance, Catherine Reynolds, says she hopes to educate locals about the projects at a public meeting today.
The cumulative impact on our small community of 370 plus turbines, each one 250 metres high, that's visual impact, sound impact and environmental impact will just devastate this small community.
ABC News. You're listening to Christy Reading on ABC New England Northwest.
Yama, good to have you here. Welcome. It is Thursday, the 6th of October. Another rainy day out there today. Overcast. Temperature's not looking too bad though for a rainy day. How have you fared overnight with rain or showers? Let us know, 1300 648 222, that is the number to call, or you can send me a text as well. By the looks, only 3, 4, 5 millimetres around in gauges, and according to the Bureau this morning. But do let us know, any storms around overnight?
Paul Kelly with Northern Rivers, now on ABC Radio. It's news time, 7:30. Madeline Cross.
Cloudy today with a high chance of showers. Good morning, Madeline Cross with ABC Mid-North, Coffs and North Coast News. An engineer says Australia's water data collection system is letting down dam managers, especially in times of flood. University of New South Wales Professor Stuart Kahn says currently data is collected by local, state and federal government agencies, making it difficult to collate. He's backed a new report by the Australian Academy of Technological Science and Engineering, which calls for the development and implementation of technologies like satellites to improve monitoring. He says real-time data is critical, especially ahead of dam releases in times of heavy rain.
Sometimes when we make those decisions, we're making those decisions on imperfect data. We don't really know that the water that we're releasing is going to be fully replaced, and we don't really know that we're necessarily releasing enough of that water in order to properly mitigate that flood.
Mid-North Coast residents are being told to prepare for more wet weather this weekend, with areas south of Taree expected to face the worst. The Bureau of Meteorology says light showers are expected today before a second system is expected to approach the region tomorrow. Widespread rainfall totals of up to 20 millimetres are forecast for Sunday, with the chance of a thunderstorm. The Bureau's Miriam Bradbury says the system should move away by next week.
Really, it's all about the next 3 to 4 days, particularly the weekend, that we need to be aware of. There is a possibility of severe weather across this time, so we really just do encourage everybody to keep an eye on the Bureau's website.
The recent weather is impacting avocado harvest across the mid-north coast as farmers race to pick their crop between rain events. Comboyne avocado farmer Penny Titterman says the rain stops production on her farm.
We don't pick when it's wet or when the fruit's wet because it bruises to it easily, so we have to make every available sunny moment count. We actually went and bought another cherry picker so that we could harvest more during the dry period.
A North Coast representative of the Rural Doctors Association has told a New South Wales parliamentary inquiry ambulance ramping affects patient outcomes in country hospitals. General Surgeon Susan Volovsky was giving evidence to the Upper House inquiry into the impact of ambulance ramping on the operation of hospital emergency departments. Dr. Volovsky says the impacts are different in country areas.
In a city, if there's no beds at a particular hospital, you can turn around and divert that ambulance to another hospital. But in Wagga, in Lismore, in Orange, you can't turn an ambulance around and go another 300 kilometres to the next available hospital. And that is the issue.
Lismore's Greyhound racing track has been permanently closed following extensive flood damage earlier this year. New South Wales Greyhound Breeders, Owners and Trainers Association Chairman Jeff Rose says it's not viable to rebuild the track, which would require meeting new industry standards. He says the new standards would mean widening the track, which isn't possible because of its proximity to the river.
We would love to be able to say this more, but the standards are what they are. We agreed on those standards when the credit codes of the institute is in, so we've got to abide by them. But that doesn't mean that we're not willing to work with other parties up there to establish safety in that area.
South Lismore business owners say small and medium-sized operations affected by the flood are still in desperate need of financial assistance. Steve Robinson from Southside Truck Centre says many businesses are questioning the gap between the support they're getting and what has been offered to big businesses like Norco. Mr Robinson says he is happy Norco will be rebuilding in South Lismore, but more help is needed.
Businesses like here at Southside Truck Centre, yes, we were able to get support from the government with the $200,000 grant, but that was it. Our losses here at Southside are in the multiples of millions of dollars.
Julie Matthews from Matthews Metal Fabrication says her South Lismore business is feeling forgotten.
I feel like, as a community member, what about us as small and medium businesses that also employ and carry and have to replace all these lost stock and equipment?
To the weather now, cloudy with a very high chance of showers, becoming less likely this afternoon. A top of 20 degrees in Taree, Port Macquarie and Coffs Harbour, 21 degrees for Crafton, 19 in Lismore and 20 degrees in Byron. To hear today's local news, search online for ABC Local. ABC News. North Coast.
Where you are with Mick O'Regan, good morning. It's lovely to have your company on this Thursday morning, the 6th of October. I hope the day is unwinding just as you'd like it to. Just to quickly check in on the local weather forecast for the Northern Rivers, a cloudy day is ahead of us with a high chance of showers becoming less likely in the afternoon and evening, and there'll be some...
as well as, what's fair and best with the inputs that have been put in. So, yeah, it's a really interesting trial.
Tim Solly there, nutrient agronomist out in the Mary Ward district. I know it's been a pretty wet week, thanks to Alan in South Muswellbrook, letting us know he's had 10 mils in the gauge already this morning. If you've been out braving the elements to check your own rain gauge, we'd love to hear from you this morning. You can text 0487 99 12 33. Right now, it's time for the news.
Cool.
Job vacancies in critical sectors, railway bottlenecks under investigation, and the Disability Royal Commission to hold a special hearing. Good morning, Bridget Murphy with ABC News. The number of advertised job vacancies in Australia has nearly doubled over the past year, according to the National Skills Commission. Gabriella Marchant has more.
The 2022 skills priority list shows registered nurses, software engineers and care workers are most in demand. Construction managers, childcare workers and motor mechanics also make the list. According to the report, of the 20 biggest occupations, more than half face shortages. The Commission says burnout from the pandemic has contributed to shortfalls, but job growth among professionals and tradies could also be a factor. The federal government says the shortages are critical and will convene a meeting with state and territory skills ministers tomorrow to discuss solutions.
The former head of the Australian Consumer and Competition Commission says the government should increase taxes on oil and gas companies. Rod Sims warns the federal government cannot afford the improvements to healthcare and aged care that Australians expect unless taxes are raised. He says oil and gas companies have recorded record profits since Russia's invasion of Ukraine and should be targeted.
We need to talk about how much we want to spend on health, education, aged care, childcare, NDIS, defence, which is obviously more and more relevant these days, because unless you're raising taxation, you won't be able to spend more in those areas.
Commonwealth public servants will receive a 3% pay increase over the next 12 months. The federal government says it's part of an interim workplace relations policy, while it consults on a longer-term plan for pay and conditions across the public service. The minister responsible, Katie Gallagher, says it ensures workers aren't worse off while it works on a service-wide wage deal. Anthony Albanese will hold talks with the Prime Minister of Solomon Islands, Manasseh Sogavare, in Canberra today. Here's Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts.
Mr Sogavare will meet the Prime Minister in Parliament House, as well as Foreign Minister Penny Wong and Defence Minister Richard Marles. His visit comes at a delicate moment in the bilateral relationship. Mr Sogavare responded angrily when Australia raised concerns about his government's security pact with China, accusing the federal government of treating Solomon Islanders like children. More recently, he berated Australia after it offered to help fund approaching elections, so they didn't have to be delayed, accusing the federal government of foreign interference.
The Modernising Rail Infrastructure Task Force will hold its first meeting next week as it tries to find solutions to supply chain bottlenecks on the freight rail network into New South Wales ports. New South Wales Farmers has set up the task force as a way of helping grain growers in particular move their grain more efficiently for overseas export. Chair Matt Madden says despite expected harvest challenges this year due to flooding in the state's west, now is the time for the New South Wales government to make infrastructure investments.
Farmers are invested to ensure that they are ready to capitalise on the big years, and that's what we'd like to see the government, along with farmers and industry, invest into what we consider take advantages when they appear.
A special sitting of the Disability Royal Commission is being held today, with the head of a youth detention centre near Perth to provide evidence. More from National Disability Affairs reporter Elizabeth Wright. The sitting will examine the conditions of detention for people with disability and hear evidence from Wade Reid, the superintendent of Banksia Hill Detention Centre. Earlier, the Commission heard from former inmates at the centre who have claimed physical and mental assault during their incarceration. The hearing will also hear from representatives of Western Australia's Department of Justice and examine the high rates of incarceration of First Nations people with disability. Data shows 30% of adult prisoners in Australia are First Nations people, and WA has the highest proportion nationally. Still to come in ABC News, Lebanon's economic crisis deepens and a wrongful death lawsuit against Hollywood actor Alec Baldwin is dropped. Nearly 5,000 regional Australians have signed a petition calling for an inquiry into regional bank branch closures. The Regional Banking Task Force released a report last Friday night recommending banks give more notice to communities before closing branches. The petition's author, journalist Dale Webster, has labelled the task force an election stunt and says regional Australians deserve an inquiry that listens to communities and prevents further closures.
The petition is calling for a immediate moratorium on regional bank closures, a new inquiry that looks at the issue from a joint parliamentary perspective, and we're also asking that the report from the Regional Banking Task Force is actually pulped.
The new British Prime Minister's first major speech to her party has been interrupted by protesters. Europe correspondent Isabella Higgins reports.
Liz Truss walked out to deliver her speech to the 90s hit Moving On Up. It was her first address to the Conservative Party conference since becoming Prime Minister less than a month ago. Not long into her address, she was interrupted by activists waving a Greenpeace sign that said, "Who voted for this?" After they were removed, she carried on and told the party faithful she was committed to economic growth, even if her policies caused some disruption. Her first weeks in office have been marred by heavy criticism, market turmoil and party infighting over her controversial mini-budget, which included billions of pounds of unfunded tax cuts.
A member of parliament in Lebanon has led the latest in a wave of bank hold-ups as the country's economic crisis spirals. Here's Middle East correspondent Tom Joyner.
A string of standoffs in banks across the country have for months seen angry depositors demand access to their savings, some at gunpoint. On Wednesday, a member of parliament joined their ranks. Cynthia Zarazir, flanked by associates and unarmed, staged a sit-in in a bank north of Beirut. There, she demanded a withdrawal of $8,500 of her own money to pay for surgery, according to a lawyer. The savings of millions of Lebanese have long been frozen by banks, part of capital controls in response to a deepening economic crisis that's seen the country's currency lose 95% of its value since 2019. Tom Joyner, ABC News.
Filming of the US movie Rust is set to resume after the family of a cinematographer killed on set reached a settlement with actor and producer Alec Baldwin. North America correspondent Jade McMillan.
The Lena Hutchins family has announced it's dropping a wrongful death lawsuit
filed after the cinematographer was shot dead with a gun that Alec Baldwin had been holding during rehearsals last year. Ms. Hutchins' husband Matthew has described her death as a terrible accident and revealed he'll be an executive producer on the movie when filming resumes early next year. Further details of the settlement remain confidential. Alec Baldwin says everyone involved has been trying to do what is best for Ms. Hutchins' son. The police investigation into the incident is ongoing.
One of the 3 joint winners of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, American Carolyn Bertozzi, says she hopes taking out the award will inspire other women to pursue science. Her research in a field known as click chemistry has been used to map DNA. Miss Bertozzi says she grew up in a strong science household where her father was a physics professor.
Having a face like mine, associated with something as recognizable as the Nobel Prize, maybe that can be a shield for some girls today who might not have the privilege that I had growing up.
With a look at sport, here's Jack Snape.
Australia's men's cricket team has defeated the West Indies by 3 wickets in their first T20 on the Gold Coast, chasing down a target of 146 with 1 ball to spare. Captain Aaron Finch led the way with an unbeaten half-century and, having recently retired from one-dayers, has told ABC Sport his record stands up to any criticism.
I'm not worried about when people try and lump them together. My one-day form was really poor over the last 12 months. My T20 form has been really good, so honestly it doesn't bother me. I don't read it or listen to any press, to be fair.
Western Australia has thrashed New South Wales by 8 wickets in its Sheffield Shield match at the WACA ground. Australian tennis player Ayla Tomljanovic has pushed world number 1 Iga Swiatek in their second-round clash at the Ostrava Open, losing a tight first set 7-5 before retiring due to a knee complaint. And Australian soccer manager Ange Postecoglou is still looking for his first victory in the European Champions League after his side Celtic fell to Leipzig 3-1.
To finance, the local share market is expected to open higher, with the ASX up 1.4%. Oil is up, with Brent crude trading at $91.5 a barrel. Gold is up at $1,734 an ounce, and the Australian dollar is lower, trading at 65 US cents. Looking at the Hunter's weather today, a very high chance of showers with daytime maximum temperatures between 16 and 20 degrees. You're up to date with all the latest in ABC News. For more, search ABC online.
Amelia Bernasconi on ABC Upper Hunter.
ABC Upper Hunter. Good morning. I do hope you're waking up well this Thursday, the 6th of October today. Thanks for spending a bit of time here on ABC Upper Hunter. We'll take our archive dive together before 7:30. Early 2000s is perhaps where we're heading today. But I reckon if you've driven down the main drag of Scone lately, you're probably wondering what's happening with the theatre. Maybe there's a bit of a link there. We'll find out together before 7:30 in this week's Archive Dive.
A little bit and make that print available.
Graham Quint there, at the time was the Acting Conservation Director for the New South Wales branch of the National Trust of Australia, speaking there with Fran Kelly on RN Brecky back in November 2000. If you've got any insights, I'd love to hear from you. I was only a little tacker then, but I have this vivid memory of watching, I think it was the 3rd Harry Potter movie at the Scone Theatres. I've just googled it. That didn't come out till 2004, so I mean, my little young brain may be very confused there. I don't know if I should have been watching Harry Potter at that age, but if you've got some insights, I'd love to hear from you this morning around, when we did see the Scone Theatre close, but lots of work happening there too. We might try and get an update as to what's happening and when we might be able to sticky beak in that old building once again. Great to have your company here on ABC Upper Hunter. Plenty more to share after the news.
Bridget Murphy with ABC Hunter News. The former head of the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission says taxes must be increased to pay for the services the public demand. Rod Sims is warning the federal government cannot deliver the improvements to childcare, aged care and healthcare that Australians expect unless revenue is increased. Mr Sims is urging the government to reconsider its opposition to a mining and carbon tax and to increase taxes on oil and gas companies.
If they make returns way more than they ever expected to justify their investment, then I think it's only fair that the community gets a better return. That's a well-accepted proposition all around the world. Indeed, the main gain Australia gets from its oil and gas and minerals is tax revenue or royalties.
Police expect more arrests could be made over the murder of a man in Newcastle last year. The body of 54-year-old Graham Cameron was found in his Stockton unit, which had been destroyed by fire in July 2021. 22-year-old Dalton Trent Oliver was charged with his murder yesterday. Detective Superintendent Danny Doherty says investigations are ongoing.
It's not over. We won't rest until other people that are involved in this incident identified and put before the courts.
The man behind a fatal shooting spree in Wyong Street 2 years ago told police he was anxious, angry and high when he fired more than 200 bullets at 5 homes and 8 cars in less than an hour. Here's Mary Louise Vince.
42-year-old Bradley Jason Mark White is charged with 7 offences, including murder, after he used 2 rifles to fire the shots, killing a 20-year-old man and injuring 2 others in March 2020. He's pleaded not guilty on the grounds of mental or cognitive impairment. During his Supreme Court trial in Newcastle yesterday, the jury was shown a recording of his police interview where he said he always felt under attack from some people in his street and was trying to prove a point to them. The accused told officers he ingested a gram of ice hours before and during the shooting. The trial continues.
A Mary War agronomist says forecast rain this week will do little to reduce the high quality of crops in the district. Growers have battled increased diseases this year due to the wet weather, but are expecting average to above average yields. Agronomist Tim Sawley says he's hopeful an expected high yield will mean a high profit margin for growers.
The potential yield is much higher than in the dry years, of course. We're probably talking 3 times the potential yield this year over the crops in the dry years. But yeah, the challenges will be whether we'll see that return into good money, really.
A new task force has been set up by the state's peak farming body to identify supply chain bottlenecks on New South Wales railways. The Modernising Rail Infrastructure Task Force will meet for the first time next week and will work to find ways to get more grain to New South Wales ports for overseas export. Task Force Chair Matthew Madden says one of the immediate fixes would be building the South West Illawarra rail link.
We could almost quadruple the amount of grain we can actually get to port, which has been identified as one of the capacity constraints. That we can't get the grain to the port fast enough to load the ship to get overseas.
First Class AFL could return to Newcastle after an $8 million upgrade to No. 1 Sports Ground. The venue has new lighting, side screens and a larger ground so it can attract elite sports, but improvements are still needed to change rooms and the grandstand. The last time elite AFL was played in Newcastle was a Swans pre-season game in 2007. Co-president of the Newcastle City AFL, Courtney Knight, says there's an opportunity to attract both men's and women's AFL to the city.
We're very, very well represented here at a junior level on the national stage, and I'm really hopeful that the Swans will repay that success and play particularly some AFLW fixtures here, but hopefully some AFL men's pre-season fixtures as well.
NRLW star Jesse Southwell has been named as Newcastle Knights Rookie of the Year at an awards ceremony last night. 17-year-old Southwell was also named as the NRLW Women's Player of the Year alongside Shanice Parker. Tamika Upton and Yasmin Clydesdale were awarded Players Award. Taking a look at the Hunters' weather, a very high chance of showers today, becoming less likely late this afternoon and evening. You're up to date with all the latest ABC Hunter news.
This morning on AM.
Hello, I'm Kim Landers. Australia's skills shortage gets worse. Nurses, teachers, software programmers and dentists all in short supply. With the federal budget less than 3 weeks away,